London, July 3rd, 2025. Prince Harry has suffered an unequivocal setback in his years-long quest to straddle the line between independence and royal relevance. After King Charles III personally declined the Duke of Sussex's written request to participate in a forthcoming state remembrance service. The monarch's terse refusal, confirmed by two senior palace officials late Friday, leaves the self-exiled prince with no ceremonial role at an event that will draw the full working roster of the House of Windsor and international dignitaries. More broadly, it codifies the family's emerging policy of granting privileges only to those who have remained consistently loyal, and it underscores the institution's determination to fence itself off from relatives who, in the view of aides, oscillate between monetizing private grievances and petitioning for public prestige. The prince's application was submitted in early June through official channels and framed, say advisors familiar with the correspondence, as a modest, duty-centric request. Harry wished to lay a wreath, attend a short reception for veterans, and join a photographic lineup of senior royals. Courtiers, however, detected what one calls a calculated bid for optics, noting that the event will be broadcast live across the Commonwealth and is expected to generate substantial global media traffic. Within a fortnight, the king responded in his own hand, an unusual gesture that left no doubt the decision was his alone, stating simply that no role was available for the Duke, thanking him for the offer of service and wishing him well. That single sheet of stationery, delivered by diplomatic courier to Harry's legal team in California, now represents the clearest institutional boundary drawn since the Sussexes stepped back from full-time duties in January 2020. Inside Clarence House, aides insist the refusal was procedural rather than punitive. The roster for the service, they say, was finalized months ago and limited strictly to working royals. Off the record, they add that the prince's recent commercial endeavors, including a confessional memoir, a 6-hour streaming documentary, and multiple high-profile lawsuits, render him incompatible with the discretion required of ceremonial participants. This is not personal, a senior official maintains. It is a matter of principle and precedent. You cannot be in, out, and in again at will. The same official notes that Prince Andrew, stripped of duties after the Epstein scandal, will similarly be absent, arguing that consistency is the monarchy's only viable shield against accusations of favoritism. Yet the language inside palace walls is notably sharper than the polite dismissal conveyed on paper. One courtier, speaking with the king's tacit consent, characterizes the Duke as a reputational hazard, explaining that every private conversation involving Harry is now treated as potentially public property. Another aide says the sovereign's patience is exhausted by the double game of denunciation followed by entitlement, pointing to allegations of racism aired in the 2021 Oprah Winfrey interview and claims of parental neglect detailed in the 2023 memoir Spare. To welcome him back without contrition would be to invite chaos, the aide concludes. We are busy enough safeguarding the crown. Within hours of receiving the king's letter, the Sussex media machine lurched into what one Hollywood publicist close to the couple describes as crisis containment mode. A short, context-free Instagram story appeared on Harry and Meghan's joint account displaying the phrase, "We see you," in stark white letters on a black background. Though no target was named, social media users and royal correspondents instantly interpreted the phrase as a passive-aggressive rebuke to Buckingham Palace, rather than rallying sympathy. However, the move detonated a wave of online mockery. Memes proliferated depicting the Duke knocking futilely on the Buckingham gates. One widely shared video looped the Queen's funeral procession behind Harry's slogan, captioned, "We see you," when the cameras do too. By Saturday evening, the hashtag We See You had logged more than 200 million views on TikTok and X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, with sentiment running overwhelmingly negative. Focus group data compiled over the weekend by polling firm Survation suggests the backlash is not confined to the digital echo chamber. Asked whether Harry should have been permitted to participate, 62% of respondents said no, 21% said yes, and 17% were undecided. Among voters over 55, opposition rose to 79%. Even in the 18 to 24 demographic, historically sympathetic to the Sussexes, only 38% supported his inclusion. Pollster Carly Davidson attributes the shift to fatigue with contradiction, noting that interviewees repeatedly cited the prince's simultaneous invocations of privacy and thirst for publicity as a credibility problem. People feel he wants the prestige without the sacrifice, Davidson says. That dissonance has eroded goodwill. The refusal lands amid a broader recalibration of the monarchy under King Charles, who has long signaled his intention to slim down the public-facing ranks of the royal family. The king's model, evoked privately as the Magnificent Six, comprises himself, Queen Camilla, the Prince and Princess of Wales, and the Princess Royal and her husband Sir Timothy Lawrence. All six have clocked decades of low-glamour patronage work and are, in palace parlance, safe pairs of hands. By contrast, neither the Duke of York nor the Duke and Duchess of Sussex fit the template. Andrew, dogged by scandal. The Sussexes by choice. In that light, Harry's overture was doomed the moment it arrived. Still, the emotional stakes are high. Last year, on the first anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's death, Charles is said to have made a private olive branch call to his youngest son. Family contacts describe the conversation as warm, if inconclusive. The present refusal, then, marks what insiders term a line in the sand that will not be redrawn. To drive the point home, the king's letter reportedly ended with a note emphasizing that Harry would remain welcome at private family occasions of a non-official nature, a phrase interpreted by royal watchers as code for baptisms and funerals, not balcony appearances. Harry's philanthropic foundation, Archewell, could feel collateral strain. Tax filings for 2024 show overheads of $5.2 million against program grants of $2.9 million, an expense ratio critics deem top-heavy. Donor enthusiasm, often tied to royal halo effect, risks dimming as the prince moves further to the institution's periphery. One East Coast philanthropist who contributed a six-figure sum in 2023 now calls the latest row disappointing, adding that she will reevaluate after the next audit. Foundation insiders counter that Archewell's mission, mental health initiatives, and digital literacy campaigns, stands independent of royal ceremony. Yet they concede, privately, that visibility drives funding cycles. Some observers accuse the monarchy of hypocrisy, noting that the institution forgave Prince Edward for an early 2000 stint producing a reality TV series and granted a ceremonial funeral to Prince Philip despite the Duke of Edinburgh's occasionally caustic public remarks. The difference, defenders retort, is that neither Edward nor Philip ever published private conversations for profit or branded the family racist on global television. Royal historian Dr. Sarah Jameson frames the comparison thus. The Windsors tolerate eccentricity. They do not tolerate what they perceive as betrayal. From Montecito, the Sussex camp has remained officially silent since the We See You post, a tactical retreat interpreted by crisis communications experts as acknowledgement that the strategy misfired. Associates say Meghan advised stepping back to avoid extending the news cycle, mindful that Archewell is preparing to launch a lifestyle and wellness platform in the autumn. One source familiar with the Duchess's thinking describes her reaction to the palace's refusal as disbelief morphing into frustration, adding that she underestimated the enduring chill toward the couple inside royal circles. Prince William's position is least ambiguous. According to two friends of the heir apparent, the Prince of Wales was briefed on his father's decision in advance and indicated firm support, citing what he considers an ongoing breach of trust. Communications between the brothers have been non-existent for more than a year, and aides to William say there is no appetite for resumption until concrete apologies are offered. Palace advisors, wary of inflaming tensions, have established a protocol ensuring that any request from Harry routes directly to the king, bypassing William's household. Queen Camilla has likewise hardened her stance, say confidants. Initially sympathetic to Harry's complaints about royal life, she now views repeated grievances as counterproductive and tiresome, according to a family friend. Princess, and long celebrated for her no-nonsense approach, is said to have advised her brother that one cannot run a firm on part-time promises. The cumulative effect is a wall of familial resolve unlikely to crumble soon. Constitutional scholars argue that the king's decision aligns with an unwritten but potent doctrine. Loyalty begets privilege. The principle carries weight beyond palace gates, influencing diplomatic deployment. The Foreign Office, which routinely pairs working royals with trade missions, has signaled its comfort with a leaner slate. Predictability is currency in statecraft, explains career diplomat Sir Jonathan Price. If a royal asset introduces unpredictability, the asset is benched. Price adds that foreign governments seek photo ops devoid of controversy. Harry's presence, once a soft power boon, now risks overshadowing policy goals. Republican campaigners, for their part, dismiss the drama as evidence that hereditary privilege is antiquated. Graham Smith, chief executive of Pressure Group Republic, says the row illustrates the absurdity of a system where family squabbles become matters of state. Yet Smith concedes that public interest in abolishing the monarchy remains lukewarm, hovering around 25% in recent surveys. Ironically, he notes, the discipline Charles shows in containing scandal makes the monarchy more durable, not less. Legal analysts point to one outstanding complication: security. Harry is engaged in litigation against the Home Office over the withdrawal of automatic police protection when he resides in Britain. The High Court ruled last year that he may contest the policy but offered no interim shield. A senior police source warns that any private trip the prince undertakes carries logistical headaches. Headaches amplified when not cushioned by palace protocol. If the prince attends the remembrance service merely as a member of the public, he must foot any security bill himself or negotiate case-by-case coverage. For the couple, such costs can run into tens of thousands of pounds per day, a burden likely to discourage spontaneous appearances. Royal watchers speculate that the couple may pivot toward American patriotic platforms, foregrounding Harry's military advocacy and Meghan's civic activism, to counter the optics of British ostracism. The Invictus Games, Harry's flagship charity event for wounded service personnel, remains scheduled for Vancouver in early 2026, providing a stage free of palace entanglement. Organizers, however, will be sensitive to sponsor sentiment. Last year's Dusseldorf Games attracted fewer broadcast deals than anticipated. One European media executive attributes the shortfall to Sussex fatigue, arguing that corporations prefer partnerships untainted by polarizing headlines. Meghan's role in shaping strategy remains contested. Critics portray her as the principal architect of a brand predicated on exposing palace flaws, then harvesting global sympathy. Supporters counter that she propelled Harry into therapy, saved his life, and operates within an institution historically inhospitable to biracial women. Both views may be partially true. What is not in dispute is her influence. Insiders confirm she encouraged the latest request, believing it aligned with a broader rebranding of the Sussexes as dignified, service-oriented, and unbowed by rejection. That vision now lies in ruins, at least for the moment. The king, meanwhile, is unapologetic about his hardline. Courtiers say Charles has invoked the memory of his mother, Elizabeth II, who famously prized duty first, self second. To grant ceremonial privilege to a son who has profited from family disclosures, the king reportedly told advisors, would undermine that ethos and invite similar bargaining from other disgruntled relatives. One source recalls the sovereign's blunt verdict: family is not a revolving stage. Reaction abroad has been muted, but largely supportive of the palace. Commonwealth leaders summoned for background comment described the refusal as understandable, sensible, and consistent with precedent. Canadian Prime Minister Melanie Joly, whose government will host the Invictus Games, declined to weigh in directly, but said through a spokesman that protocol decisions rest with His Majesty's household. Australian Prime Minister Linda Reynolds offered a similar stance, adding that her Republican administration remains respectful of the King's judgment. In private, diplomats say the episode will barely register on foreign policy dashboards, reinforcing palace confidence that the risk of reputational harm is low. Where then does this leave Prince Harry? For now, on the outside looking in, clutching a slogan that backfired in a brand that depends on proximity to a palace that has slammed its doors. The Duchess, chastened by an unexpected public mauling, is said to be re-examining the Sussex playbook. Options include a deeper retreat into philanthropy, a shift toward climate advocacy, or renewed pursuit of Hollywood production deals, though studio appetite for royal exposés may be cooling. Friends caution against expecting swift pivot points. The couple, they say, are exhausted by the intensity of backlash and plan a low-profile summer with their children in Montecito. Palace insiders, for their part, expect a lull, not a capitulation. They anticipate further requests, perhaps to join next year's Trooping the Color, perhaps to appear on the St. George's Chapel steps for a cousin's wedding, and they predict further refusals unless a tangible apology appears. Asked what form such contrition must take, one courtier is explicit: a private letter acknowledging specific harms, a public statement withdrawing allegations of racism, and a commitment to end all commercial exploitation of royal confidences. Whether the prince would ever sign such a document is uncertain. Whether the Duchess would countenance it, doubly so. In the meantime, the House of Windsor moves forward with a tightened perimeter and a monarch determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. The remembrance service will proceed without its once favorite son. Veterans will applaud, bands will play, and photographers will settle their lenses on the figures who remain. The absence itself will declare the new status quo more loudly than any speech. A prince who walked away cannot simply walk back in, no matter how heartfelt the petition or how polished the publicist. That reality may strike some observers as harsh. Families, after all, mend fences every day. Yet monarchy is no ordinary family. It is an institution wrapped in myth, buttressed by protocol, and sustained by public faith in its own mystique. Break the spell, and the dreamers awaken. Prince Harry chose daylight. The palace prefers twilight. The consequence, laid bare in a single handwritten line from father to son, is banishment not by decree, but by the inexorable gravity of institutional logic. Those who orbit the crown must observe its laws of motion, or drift irretrievably into space. For now, the Duke floats at that lonely frontier, visible to the world, yet barred from the inner circle whose light once defined him. Whether he charts a new constellation or burns up on re-entry is a story for another day. What is certain, after this latest rejection, is that the royal family has drawn its frontier, and crossing back will require more than a slogan. It will demand an act of contrition equal to the scale of departure, and perhaps a humility no longer compatible with the Sussex brand.